Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we are hopefully going to finish off the back end of the Frankenholer. Alright guys, welcome back, and if you've been watching you would have seen that last week I got a fair bit done on the rear end of the Frankenholer, but there's still a lot to do. It's a rusty old cab, it needs a bit of rust repair, but this is the fun stuff. This is the stuff that I actually enjoy. Getting in, hand making panels, working out what needs to be cut out, what doesn't, and just working my way through it, and we're really getting there. I am very happy with the progress so far. Like always, these reproduction panels need a little tweaking to get them to fit properly, and I've still got a bit more to do on the other side. If you missed last week's episode, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And as always, please like and comment on the video. It all helps out that mysterious algorithm. The Alfarari has not been forgotten about. I have actually been working on it a couple of days this week in the background, but there's lots of things that are sort of fiddly, and I'll wait until I've got a full episode for you guys on that stuff. So it hasn't been forgotten about. I am working on it. I do have plans. It's just, for the time being, we've got the Frankenholer to keep us busy. So let's get straight into this other side, and I'll show you where we're up to. All right, so like I mentioned last week, I got this panel on with a bit of tweaking and got it on nicely. This corner, however, has given me a little bit more trouble. When I've got it connected on sort of nicely at the back and getting this sort of panel line all lined up and joining, it sits okay there, but then it sits way off here, and I can't physically get it into shape. When I connect it up here and get it square here with a door, I can't get the back lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this panel in half and get it all into where I want, and then I can weld it back together, put patches or whatever. So that is what I'm going to do now. Is let's slice and dice and see what we come up with.
So you can see I used some tape to get a nice straight edge and start by making my first cut. Then I can just clean up the edges and remount it to where it needs to go. Then on the opposite side, I start lining up the back of the replacement panel and make sure that is in the right spot, using some self-tappers to hold it in place. Once I'm happy with the location, I remove it and replace it inside the cab, and then use some self-tapping screws to hold it into the perfect location so I can then scribe and cut a nice even edge to be able to weld it together.
Alright, so I've been working my way through. I've managed to get the rear roughly where I want it. The back is all lining up nicely, but when it comes around the bottom, the angle is sort of very different to what I have got here. So by cutting off this edge, I've got the door jamb part, the complicated part to remake. That's mounted in place. So now what I need to do is, you can sort of see that it's not lining up the way I want. I'm just trying to work out another cut so that I can cut it and join it and move it so that this edge sort of lines up, and I might have to remake a strip in the corner or something like that. So I think I might cut a strip in the on this curve and use that as my spot to sort of cut and tweak and move and see if we can get this to line up where it's supposed to.
So once I've scribed and cut the extra piece, I then go around and clean up the edges so that I can have a nice surface to weld to, and then it's a matter of trying to find the perfect location for this joiner piece. As with the previous panels, I use my air punch again to get the nice plug weld holes all the way around the edge. And then I make sure I clean up the surface and use a bit of weld-through primer to prepare it for its final resting place on the back of the cab. And once I've tacked in the door jamb edge and the rear section of the filler panel, it's then a matter of trying to float the joining piece in the right spot, just using the eyeballs to get it so that they will blend nicely together and I can actually get a flowing shape.
Alright, so I've stitched the top of these pieces on, and there's some gaps I'm going to have to fill along the way, but that's my mistake by over trimming these panels to start with. But that's easy enough to tidy up. It's the gaps down here that I've had to make, so by the time I actually trimmed it and made it all sort of fit closely where I want it, there are these gaps. So I'm going to have to get some strips and weld in some thin strips of sheet to try and get these in the right spot. So I'm going to trim out some strips now, and we'll start going through and just start tacking into place where I need to.
So once I've tacked in the front edge, I start adding little tiny strips of filler sheet. Just a small bit at a time, and I tack it in with a MIG. Concentrating the whole time to make sure that I get the alignment of the panels perfect, because a little time now makes a big difference down the other end. If your panels are only slightly misaligned, you end up chasing your tail for a long time and you've got a lot of bodywork to fix it up.
Alright, it's looking quite rough, but the whole shape is now there, and I've now managed to patch together this corner so that it all sits quite nicely, and I actually have both sides done. So now I'm going to finish plug welding around the bottom, and then I'll probably get the TIG out and go over all these welds with the TIG. And before I actually weld this up, I thought I'd have another quick word about TIG welding and MIG welding. Now, I mentioned in the past that one of the reasons why I prefer the TIG weld is because it's softer and more malleable. And I sort of perpetuate the myth that I'd heard somewhere before, that the reason that MIG welds are much harder than TIG welds is that the wire needs to be hardened to be in the machine. But that never really made sense to me. Because of the annealing and tempering process of steel is basically to make steel harder. You heat it up and then cool it quickly, and that will make it hard. And then if you heat steel up and let it cool down slowly, that's how you anneal it and make it softer. And it's actually that process is the reason why MIG welds are harder than TIG welds. So like I mentioned, you do a little spot of a MIG weld and try and hammer it, and it's rock hard, and you'll struggle to dent it with a hammer. Whereas the TIG weld is quite soft. And even if you TIG welded using MIG wire, it would still create a soft weld. And that is because with the MIG, as you fire it out, the process happens so quickly, and you can see it when you MIG weld it, that there's a very small heat affected area, because basically the electrode is the wire that melts as soon as it touches, and because it's attached to a bigger area, it dissipates the heat very quickly. So I can actually sort of MIG zap and then run my hand over the area quickly and not actually get crazy burns. Whereas you can see with the TIG welder, because the TIG welder has to heat the surrounding metal up, and then once it's warm enough, then you can start adding your filler. So it has a much larger heat affected zone. There's less of that heat sink like with the MIG, and it gets to cool down slowly, and that is why. A big thanks to Trev's blog, who did a video on this just recently. I watched that video, and a light bulb moment went off for me, and it makes perfect sense of why the TIG is softer than the MIG. Now, the TIG will warp the panel more than the MIG, but the MIG welds are often very brittle as well, particularly once you grind them down and get them thin for a repair like this. If there's any flex, they'll crack along those welds, whereas the TIG is much sort of blends better into the material. But like I said, to start with and to learn, the MIG welder is definitely the way to go. And that's where we come to this month's giveaway with Weldclass, which is a fantastic one. They're giving away a Force 180 MST pack. It's a MIG stick and TIG all in one, so you can actually do your MIG and your TIG with this welder. They're giving away a whole kit. Comes with everything you need to start, including the welder, a Promax helmet. You've got a bunch of wire, gloves, magnets, an angle grinder. They've got a whole bunch of stuff in the kit. It's a fantastic starter pack for any of you guys. And they're giving one away to one of you guys for free this month. So if you follow this link on the screen, or there's also a link in the description of the video, go follow there, enter in the competition, and one of you guys in Australia will win the full starter welder kit. It's fantastic of Weldclass to be putting on these monthly giveaways here. So every month this year, we're going to be giving away something from Weldclass, and the prizes are just getting juicier and juicier. So this is going to be a really good one. It's a really good machine to get you guys going. So, all right, speaking of welding, let's get back and crack out that TIG.
So I found the grooves on the replacement panels weren't quite as deep as the ones that were on the cab, so they just took a little bit of finessing with the hammer and dolly to get them to line up. Once they're welded and ground back, I can then work on plug welding the bottom of the panel all the way along. And now I'm working my way along and TIG welding in just one relatively continuous strip the whole way along. Then I can go back with a hammer and dolly for any waves or distortion later.
All right, I am very happy with that. So both sides are now all welded on and panel beater back out again. And we have at least the rear cab corners all nice and fresh. But there's still a very big piece missing in the middle. And that I can't get a replacement for, so I need to make it. So now I have to come up with a plan to make this center section. Now, just doing my measurements, this side is actually about 3 or 4 millimeters higher than that side. So not a great deal, to be honest, but it's enough that I also don't really like the shape of this side. This side seems to be sort of tilting up more, whereas that one comes across a bit more flat. It's probably hard to see on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this out and lower it down slightly, just to sort of get everything nice and lined up. And then we'll start trying to make up a template and see if I can just fold up a piece to fit into this center section.
So once I've got my rough measurements, I cut out a couple of strips on the guillotine. And then trim them to length. You can see here I work my way backwards and forwards on the machine because it doesn't like to bend as sharply in the middle as the ends.
All right, so I made up a little template of the shape. So I just got a little piece of steel. I put a sharp fold in it here and just hand folded this to meet the size that I want. So that's my template for what I need to make into my piece. Now I've already put a single fold in it. So this is the sharp fold at the bottom is already there. And now I need to start curving this gradually. Now the problem with my very dodgy brake that I have is that it leaves a crease and it'll give me sharp bends. So what I've done is I've taken another thin piece of material and folded it in half, and I'm going to use this because now this has a softer curve on it. I'm going to use this on top and actually help give a softer curve to this panel, and we'll see how that goes.
So my thin angle, you can see I've actually taped it over the blade of the folder just to give me a nice softer curve, and I'm gradually working my way along now to try and get that angle in the correct spot to line up with the back of the cab. You can really see how much more it folds on the ends than the middle by the way the center bows.
All right, well, I managed to bend up this piece nice and gradual. I got a nice gradual curve all the way along. The issue with this brake, as I've mentioned many times, is it's a 3-in-1 machine. So it's got a guillotine at the bottom, it's got the folder in the middle, and it's got the roller at the top. It does 3 things badly. It's much better than nothing, don't get me wrong, but it's still not great. So one of the big issues it has is that there's obviously, even with how sort of solid it is, it bends more at either end than it does in the middle. So it ends up just leaving this sort of wobbly shape, and that's why you might have seen me going along and sort of panel beating it into shape on the machine to try and get a sort of semi-even curve. Like a glove. That is spot on. That's exactly what I needed. So what I might do now is I might clamp this on. I'm going to scribe it from the inside and then trim it off so that it's the right height. And then we need to start having a look at what we're going to do about these channels.
Now I've aligned it and scored the panel. I just trim off the excess and prepare it for welding. You can see I'm tacking from one end and working my way along. If I started at one end and then tacked at the opposite end and backwards and forwards, I'd probably end up with excess material in the middle and end up with a very wavy finished result.
All right, that has fit in very nicely. I sort of tacked in all of my other end and I've given it a quick grind back, just knocking the top off of all of those little welds. And now I've got to go through and start making up these channels. Now, on the original panel, these channels just basically tapered off of the end. So basically what my plan is to make up a length of channel that I can cut in and cut into each section, weld it in, and hopefully it all matches and does what it needs to do. I am really happy with that. All right, I am really, really happy with that. That worked beautifully. So it's still only tacked in there with the MIG. I'm going to go back over it with the TIG and weld it in properly, but that is spot on. So now I just have to do the other two. And that is looking really, really good. I am very happy. All these channels are all nice and straight and lined up. So now I just need to TIG weld it all together. All right, well, overall, I'm quite happy with the result of this. The back end was a little bit of a challenge, but that's one of the things I like. I really like how neatly this center section came up, and I managed to get it all done, and that is the bottom rear of the cab done. So we only have the roof left, and there's a little bit at the front. The front corners, there's still some more to go, let's face it, but I am very happy with the progress. I really enjoy this stuff. Keeps me thinking, and I like sort of being able to turn some just random flat sheets, bits of metal into something functional that resembles what it originally did in the factory, or pretty close to it. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. But that is definitely all the time I have today, so I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, after Henry Ford won his first and only ever race in the 1901 sweepstakes, he took his earnings to start his second car company. Named the Henry Ford Company, it was mostly organised from the remains of his failed Detroit automobile company. Unfortunately, much like his last company, the Henry Ford Company was also plagued with disputes between himself and his investors. In March of 1902, after a dispute with his financial backers, William Murphy and Lemuel Bowen, Ford left the company. As part of the settlement, he left with his name and $900. In August of 1902, Henry M. Leyland, a local manufacturer of precision gears and engines, came in and reorganised the company, naming it the Cadillac Automobile Company. It was acquired in 1909 by General Motors and became GM's luxury marque.
All right, I am quite happy. We have the whole back of the truck completely rust repaired. We still have bits on the front, we still have the roof, but it's getting there. I'm very happy. And also, I'd like to say a thank you to Ralph.
Or maybe Rafe.
Or maybe Rafe Wells. I think it's Ralph because it's Ralpha.
Oh, yeah.
Who sent a bunch of photos of his Alphas and a plate from Wisconsin, which is
Our first one from Wisconsin.
That goes on the wall. And of course, being an Alpha plate, that's very cool. So thank you very much, Ralph, for your contribution to the plate wall. And yes, make sure you also go through and join that Weldclass competition. The link is down below. Win yourself a full welder pack. It's really good.
Is that just for Australia?
It is for Australia residents only, unfortunately, guys. But that's how it is. All right.
Well, like, subscribe, let Jeff know what you think about the videos. I feel like I always say that, but there's not really anything else to sort of, another way to phrase it.
But
yes, just a reminder.
Yes.
He loves reading your comments. And
join us on Patreon.
oh, yes. That helps out a lot. Very
Yes.
aggressive. And you get to see the videos a day early with no ads. Woohoo.
Which is always a bonus. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
After Henry Ford won his first and only ever win, plagued with a series of disputes between himself and his backers.
Not himself.
No. And his investor, between Ford and his investors.
Himself, he's only a single.
Oh, Lemuel. Bowen.
Like Samuel, but Lemuel.
Yeah, it's not like Samuel, is it? Lemuel.
It is.
In March of 1902, after a dispute with his Henry M. Leyland, a manufacturer of precision gears and engines. Henry M. Leyland, a manufacturer.
Local.
Thank you. In August of 1902, renaming it the Cadillac Automobile Company. Cadillac.
Cadmillac.
What's a Cadillac?